So our very first rule that we're going to work on is basically creating that bubble around us that we can know that we can get the horse out of our space if we need to. That's the main thing that horses do out in their herd to kind of organize and sort the herd, and also for consequences for the herd. So they're going to push a horse that's not behaving correctly away from the herd, and more than one herd member is going to maybe do that. So they are going to work at, and the easiest way to usually do that is to disengage the hind and to push the horse from the back out, so that the horse is the easiest way, it takes the least amount of energy to get that horse out when they're running forward and out. And so that's how we are going to create that boundary. So we can create that boundary through forward motion. So a lot of times if I'm at liberty with a horse and it's the first time I'm working with the horse, I'm actually going to just use my energy in a playful way, send them out, and go get them moving out there a little bit. And then I'll go play with them, like mirror with them at a trot, but I'll still keep the pressure on them to keep them out there. And so that's my first way to establish creating a little bit of that space and that boundary away from me and creating a bubble around me. And I will just increase my energy when I do that. I can also test that boundary a little bit by exposing my shoulders and or my core energy. So if I'm here with Maverick and I've created that boundary here, I've created a wall. And he shouldn't go past that wall. So you can see right away when I added that energy, he backed away off of that energy from me. And if I had him on a line, I always leave him on a loose line to do all of this work, or because I think about them as being at liberty, or I allow them to be free at liberty to go through all of this. So I'm very careful. If I have a really high energy horse, I'm going to hold my ground, but if I expose my shoulder, he's probably going to blow past that shoulder. So I would do everything that I can to keep that horse from blowing past my shoulder. Or if he is really amped up and he just can't contain himself and he can't control myself, I'm not going to hold that boundary. I'm going to open the door, so open my shoulder, send my energy out, and send the horse out and forward. And let them go out and let them have the emotional stuff that they need to have out there, and let them, do what they need to do. But I will stay with them then and keep a little bit of pressure on them until I see that they can kind of come down to a little bit of a calmer state. So I'm not going to really expose my boundary with my horses unless, until I know that they can keep their feet a little bit more still. Otherwise, we go out there and we go and we run and we go do and we push them out a little bit more. So I'm always aware of where my shoulders are with this rule number 1 in my liberty. I make sure that I know that he's not going to cross that. If I open that shoulder, you're allowed to go in a liberty circle. If I close that shoulder, whoa, here we go. We're going to stop and we don't go past that barrier. So it's super important. So a few of the things that we can do are just like I said, we can open our shoulder and send them forward and out. That's a great way to create a boundary, and I can even mirror my horse out there to try to get them to connect a little bit better through that forward or that boundary. Or I'm going to, use my energy and just back him out of my space a little bit and say, move out of my space. There's my boundary. Make sure that you stay there. Or I create that boundary here that he needs to stay. If I expose my shoulder here, he should stay there. If I soften my shoulder, that invites him to go forward. So I create those boundaries there so that he knows they're solid. And I'm consistent with my own body language when I do that. So then I can just back. If my shoulder comes past his shoulder, well, there. So he thought about it. He's got to speed up a little bit better so that he understands that there's that barrier. I've got that boundary there. And so you should not go past that boundary. See how he's a little slow in there? So I'm just going to help him out with that. So our backups are a really good place to work on that as long as the horse can be still in their feet. If the horse can't be still in their feet, then we're going to send them out in the direction of travel that we've chosen. That's the most important thing. We're going to go. So rule number 2 is controlling the direction of travel. Rule number 2 is very important in controlling the direction of travel because that is what they do out in the herd. I explained it a little bit before that controlling of direction of travel is where the leaders or the true ones in the herd that are going to keep the other horses safe know and are aware of all the predators and they know where they are. And so they're going to lead or push the horses in the direction of travel that's the safest, to go to the watering hole or go to the food. We need to pick a side of our horse. So we're going to pick an eye or we're going to pick a hip on this same side. So I've got to know where that eye is and that hip is on the side that I've chosen consistently. Then I'm going to, if I change my direction of travel, I'm going to be very clear that I've changed that direction of travel. So if it's a new horse that I don't know, in here I've connected on this side, and if I want to go and connect on the other side, I'm going to let them know that I am truly connecting now on this side, and that I am now going to control the direction of travel on this side. So that's as simple as looking at shift there, so that I shifted my energy to that side, so that I can push him. So my hip to his hip, he should have his weight on the outside feet all the time. So then if I want to switch to the other side, I'm just going to come now to the other side and reconnect on this side. And see how automatically he put his weight, my hip to hip this time, and he put his weight onto his other foot there. So again, that's because if his weight is on the feet closest to me, he's driving me. He's controlling the direction of travel with me. So he's pushing on me a little bit, and it's going to take 1 or 2 seconds for me to push him to get him out. Whereas if he's got his weight on his outside, I can easily disengage this and send him out, if that makes sense. So I'm always aware of that. That's my passive leadership. That's my awareness and my attunement as a leader to my horse. That I am aware of what his body is doing at all times. I'm aware that he is actually leaning into me a little bit, and it's going to take me 1 or 2 seconds to get him to get his weight to his outside feet, to disengage his hind and send him out. So he knows that. He knows that, and he's testing those things to make sure that I'm aware of that. So I'm going to do that from the time that I go pick him from the field to the time that I go and take him from his stall, the whole entire time that I have him in the cross ties and I'm doing work with him in the cross ties. I'm going to have the same concept all the time around my horse because that's what a true good leader is going to do. Be prepared, and they are aware at all times. So even in there, you can see how much he relaxed and he started like twitching because he's almost ready to fall asleep in there. Because I am hip to hip, or whip to hip, or rope to hip. I'm ready to push and drive that horse out when I need to. And he's aware of that and then corrected it ever so slightly. Now, of course, when we get more into our advanced liberty, we can change those directions of travels not by having to connect on each side of the horse. We're just very clear with whatever we're doing to change the direction of travel, and they're okay with that. They understand now what side of the horse that you're working on. So some of the best things that horses let us know that they're controlling the direction of travel a bit more is that we have to move our feet around them more. Okay? That's one of them. But also a block. So a lot of horses, if I go to disengage the hind, here I'm going to disengage, they might come across and go here and block me so that I can't see their hip. That's the most common one. And so I would just gently unblock them and just go, no, I need to see your hip and everything, and make sure that the weight is again on the outside feet. So that block is a very common one. Same within our draw. So a lot of times when we draw, they come into us and whoa. And see how he nicely stopped when my shoulder came up? And didn't put his head across me and in front of me so that I couldn't see that hip. So they're doing it on purpose so that I can't drive that hip out fast. And if I don't catch those little things with my horse all the time and kind of fix them, then the horse goes, this, see the nice breath in there? The horse goes, nope, she's not aware of these rules that I live by out in my herd. She's not aware of them. I've got to start looking out for myself. So it's not that these little corrections that we're making are rude or not nice to our horse. These little corrections are those things that are letting them know that we are very aware of their needs and what they need out in their herd. So these little tiny corrections that we're making are helping the horse to create that structure. So those little tiny boundaries that we're putting in place here are creating that structure for them to feel safe. So that they can go, ooh, yes, I can let go of that CEO position and I can just relax and have a good time here instead of having to worry about everything else out there. So I want that concept again of that yin and yang that we talked about where these complement each other. These things complement each other. They don't conflict against each other. I am not having to be mean to my horse by just, creating a little bit, of boundary in here to say, hey, stay on that side, but then they get the nice draw, and then they get the relaxation, and they get the petting or whatever it is that is a reward to that particular horse. So we look at these things as being a balancing of the teeter-totter with that draw and that yield away or that pressure, and just being aware of what is important to them, which are those rules out there in the field. And so if I work on those rules, then they feel a lot more confident and better that we are actually herd members. I'm not so much predator, but we're actually working together as herd members. And then we can add our mirroring in there as much as we possibly can with whatever exercises that we're doing, because that also makes them feel safe out there as well. Because the more that they're in sync with each other and mirroring each other, the safer they are as well. So that third rule is pretty simple. Once we've got through rule number 1 and rule number 2, rule number 3 is then actually changing the direction of travel. But a lot of horses can get a little bit worried about that. They might feel comfortable in one direction and then we have to change the direction of travel, and that can be a bit worrisome for them. So we work at that slowly, especially with our rescue horses or our more feral horses. We work on one side, getting one side very confident, and then we'll change the direction very slowly and carefully, and give them some time to integrate that. And so it's simple. We can just do a ton of different exercises that actually show that we're changing the direction of travel. So at Liberty, we could just even cut across the arena, guide them to the middle, and send them the other direction. Or they might have to turn with their head to the wall and change. That's okay too, but the more that we can have them connecting with us, the better. And then in here, we can change the direction of travel, even in motion. So I could be on this side, do a change in front, and change the horse to the other side. I can do a reverse switch here, change the direction of travel there. So there's many different ways that we can actually change that direction of travel, but that the horse is calm and confident and okay with being worked on both sides, and understanding that they are okay with that. So a lot of horses aren't okay with us being on the off side of them, because at other barns they don't do anything on this side. And so we just have to make them calm and confident on both sides, and being able to change that direction of travel on both sides. And then sometimes we do, when we let them off at Liberty, and we're adding a little bit of pressure, that change of direction of travel can just go, whoo, okay, wake them up a little bit, and get them paying a little bit more attention, and then we work at drawing them and getting them to come into us